Alright guys, welcome back to the Bayou Diesel channel. We are going to be working on a 2004 F-450 today. Just to catch you up on this project, this is one I started quite a while back and has been sitting on the back burner. 2004 F-450 originally came with a 6.0. I believe the turbo seals went out, floated some valves and bent some rocker arms. So we pulled the 6.0 out, pulled the transmission out. We had a donor truck with low mileage on a 7.3, Ford updated rebuild on the 7.3, and a Ford updated rebuild on transmission as well. So we took all of the wiring, all of the 7.3 and transmission parts out of the donor F-350, and we got everything in here except for the transmission. We did test run it. It's running okay. We couldn't run it for very long because we didn't have any coolant set up yet. So today's project, we're going to finish pulling out of a donor truck, which is right there, and we're going to pull the radiator and install a radiator, get coolant in it, get everything going so we can crank her and run her for a little while, let it burp the system, make sure we got all the bugs out of it. Probably the next episode, we're going to be pulling the transmission out of that donor truck, which is a fresh, about maybe 2,000 miles on a fresh rebuild with all updated hardened parts. We're going to pull that transmission and put it behind this 7.3, and we'll go from there. So hop along for the ride. We're going to pull the radiator and get her going today. All right guys, we're going to get on this radiator. We're going to pull the upper supports off, the hoses and everything's off. It's already been drained. Transmission cooler lines have been pulled off. Didn't think that was terribly exciting for you guys to watch. So we're going to pull this radiator out, bring it over to the other F-450 and drop her in. Brackets come off with some 8mm screws, and they're just rubber grommeted onto the top of the radiator. This final push pin pulled off. Like I said, all the hoses have been taken off with the exception of this little degas bottle hose. Fluids have been drained and caught, and transmission lines out. So what we want to do is we already got the fan out the way. So you want to be real careful when you're pulling this out not to rub anything against the cooling surfaces and bend all your fins. I got a lot of stuff. I got a little working room here, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull it out. When we get to the other truck, we're going to use some cardboard in place to keep us from messing up this fairly new radiator here. If you just rock her back and forth, she will usually come right on out. And we'll have to get a pry bar and get down there. Be back. All right, I had to get under there and talk to this side with a pry bar, but we came to an agreement. And here comes the radiator. Again, be real careful pulling it out. It's kind of awkward and wants to get around and rub on things that'll cause damage to it. Alright, she's out, and I will get y'all set up to see her go in the other truck. Alright guys, we are ready to go back in. Had to shut y'all down for a minute because I had a ground wire to move, but we're all ready to go. So we're going to carefully pick up our radiator. And drop her in. There's two rubber grommets at the bottom that little pins stab into. Get her lined up here. Alright. Let me let her lean over because I have these in the way, which are the old screws that we didn't Take all the way out. Get these out and put our brackets in. Stab over and put your bolts back in. Then here's your upper radiator supports. Alright, get this one back on. Looks like we're missing a clip. See if I can rob one off the other truck. Alright, let me get this clip back in. It's the benefit of having a donor truck, guys. You're working on these 20-year-old trucks. A lot of people like to buy parts. I prefer to buy the donor truck because it gives you a whole wealth of parts that at the time you may not even know that you're going to need. So you become your own parts warehouse. Get these bolts up in here. We will be going. I wanted to tell everybody, in case anybody's new to the 7.3 game, I think everybody that's in it may already know it, or you may not, but when it comes, hang on one second. When it comes to the upper radiator hose, there's two hoses. Let me get you guys here. Excuse the shakiness, but there's two hoses. The Ford decided for the 99 to 03s to shorten the radiator hose. So you have these two hoses here. This is the 99. This is the 98 and older, and this is the one for the 99 to 03. And basically what it does is, if you're on the side of the road and you have a serpentine belt problem, you can change it on the side of the road, but the way the serpentine belt runs over this pulley, in 99 to 2000, the hose goes right underneath the fan belt. So if your fan belt starts to shred or give you trouble and you need to change it, you're going to be on the side of the road trying to pull an upper radiator hose. So on the older ones, 98 and older, I believe, the upper hose comes off of here, goes through this notch, and then on the outside of the fan belt stabs onto the upper port of the radiator. So once you do that, you can just put a little piece of rubber boot here and a zip tie to hold it out of the way, and then you can change your fan belt on the side of the road without having to lose any coolant and cause a mess. So we're going to get some hoses on here, and I'll get right back with you. All right, well actually I'm not going to be doing the hoses just yet. I skipped a step. So what we're going to do is set up to put the fan in. There's a couple of different ways to do it. I find with the belt off and turning the water pump pulley by hand and holding the fan straight or the fan still is the easiest way for me. Different people do it different ways, but that's what works for me. So in order to protect the radiator, we're going to put some cardboard in here. I just take my time and route this cardboard down, because you have to come in with the fan and the shroud at the same time, which is a little bit of a pain. So making sure that you have some cardboard protecting the radiator so it doesn't get roughed up is a good option. All right. On these manual fans instead of the electric fans too, a little side note, when you're putting them out of your way, always keep the fan clutch assembly fairly straight up and down. Don't lay it on its side, because it'll cause the fluid to shift around and can give you some trouble. So we got our cardboard in place, we got our fan shroud kind of temporarily in. So we're gonna see if we can't snake this fan clutch down in the hole. And again, instead of trying to turn the fan, it's easier, in my opinion, to try and hold the fan straight and turn the water pump to get it to catch a thread and get started. And when it comes to taking these off, I've seen a lot of suggestions about ratchet straps and this and that. Of course, leaving the fan belt on till the last minute is always a good idea, just to keep everything kind of in line and it give you a little hold back, but it's not going to be strong enough to hold back against breaking the fan loose. You got to jar that fan clutch in order to get it to come all the way off. Now we're done with our cardboard and our fan is on. We're going to stab the shroud into the bottom of the radiator. There's some notches. Alright, now we can get the fan shroud buttoned in. Keep everything out of the way, give us some working room to work on tightening the fan clutch. Alright, we're going to snug those down so we don't forget them. Alright, get these. Alright. Alright, that's in place. There's a couple of different holdback tools. What I was talking about on the fan belt, there's a pneumatic air gun or air hammer setup that has specialty wrenches that'll fit the nut, and there's a hook in the end of it that accepts a rod from the air chisel or the air hammer. You need a pretty good size one, and I'll see if I can show you a picture or a link to that at the end of the video. But you rig up and hold back the bolts on the water pump pulley and get that on there, and a couple of little pop-ups with the air gun, and that fan is off. When you put it back on, you just want to snug it down. So I'll get let me get the camera here, and I'm going to show you how we're going to hold back or two tools to hold back the water pump, and then just use a big, I just use a big crescent wrench to snug it down. All right guys, I had to bring you over to the donor truck where you can see. With the shroud and the fan in the way, it's kind of hard to see what I was talking about. But this is one style of holdback tool that sits and holds, say, the top two bolts on the pulley of the water pump. I'll show you that in a minute. And this is one you could actually make, but this square here goes across all four of the bolts on the pump. So let me get you up here where you can see. Okay, as I was saying, there's the four bolts on the water pump pulley. So this holdback tool will catch these two like that. It's a little tricky to coordinate all of this stuff. And then the flat plate one that I showed you will catch all four just like a big wrench, and allow you to hold back and put a bind on there. And I believe, let me get down here where you can see. All right, there we go. So that's the two different styles. Also, excuse the shakiness, but we're gonna get over here. This is the tool I was telling you about. This bad boy here has this rod with the notch in the end, and it accepts this hook, which goes on the fan. So you use the holdback tool, put this on the fan. I mean, just a couple of ugga-duggers on that, and she is off like butter. So if you have the opportunity to use a tool like this, or if you have a good friend that'll loan it to you, make sure that you get that. It'll save you a lot of headaches on getting that fan off, and a lot of rigging and strapping and fooling around. All right, let's get back to tightening the fan clutch. All right, we got our big crescent on here, and we're gonna go in with this particular holdback tool. There she is, back on. And while we're here, we get our belt back on. Turn this up a minute. I'm sure you guys already know about fan belts. Shouldn't be a hard thing to explain, so I'm not going to waste your time with it. We'll get this done. serpentine tool together. Get it locked in. Check our alignment here. And she's back on. Now it's time to run hoses. We got to get our upper and lower hose on, get our degas tank on, which also goes to the bottom, and we need to screw in our trans cooler lines. So we'll get back to that here in just a second. All right, our final step on the coolant. And as you can see right here, I think you can make it out how we have, let me turn the camera just a little bit. Hang on, let me get it off of here. So you can see how we have this routed under the alternator, whereas the current style hose goes right through there, and that's the one I was telling you about that had to go underneath the hose and cause you some problems when you're on the side of the road. At the shop it really doesn't matter, but on the road it kind of can be a pain in the butt. We got a filter set up in our funnel, and we got our heater hose down here in front of the H-pop pulled off so we can watch the water rise there, and that'll help burp the system. Just keep an eye on it right here at that pipe, and when the water gets up to the top of the pipe, we'll put the hose back on. It's kind of hard to burp these things. We'll talk about it some more when we get it running, but that's one of the quick ways to try and get the air out of the block. Again, just keeping an eye on the water down there, and let her fill up, take her time. Alright, looks like we're gonna have to go get another gallon or two. So let me go knock that out. Alright, we're gonna hit this with a little spray on both sides. Nothing but a little soapy water. And work them in there all the way. And then we hose clamp these down, and then like I said, we're gonna tie wrap all of this and clean this all up, and then that will adapt your 3/8 and 1/2 inch lines to the 6.0 cooler. So since the sun's going down and the batteries are going dead, we're gonna catch you guys on the next one and see where we pick up on this 450. Catch you later.